In this video, I will explain to you the relation between the Russia-Ukraine crisis and the scandalous Amanda Knox case in Perugia, Italy. To understand this, you must understand that Americans are not a people, but a product, and that Russians are still a real people, which the pharaohs want to destroy and mix it all up by importing peoples and races from all over the world in order to stop the growing Slavic nationalism in Russia. Just as Pharaoh has done in America and Pharaoh is doing in Western Europe today. 250 years ago, there was no such thing yet as America and the Americans, while Russia and the Russian people already existed. Where do they come from all of a sudden 250 years ago, this American product of the big melting pot? Well, Octagon of the Knights Templars and their Freemasons had a dream to build their biggest all-powerful horizontal rule empire somewhere in the world. As Switzerland in the Alps, their first octagon state in history from 1291, was getting a bit small. And our masters wanted to split up the tasks, as in specialization. Switzerland for their financial and diplomatic tasks, and their new giant octagon for their military and economical tasks concerning the weapons productions. Here you can see USA, 54% of all the weapons being produced in the world from America. Russia is only this little bit, 5%. They don't stand a single chance, the Russians do. That's why from around the moment of the creation of their American empire, the notorious Swiss mercenaries disappeared from all battlefields. Last seen during the 30-year War from 1618 to 1648, deliberately chasing many prosecuted Protestants into their new American empire. The Octagon's Swiss mercenaries' disappearance coinciding with the birth of Pharaoh's biggest New World Order creation. Funny, huh? In 1618, the 30-year War against the Protestants started in Europe. And 2 years later, the Mayflower sailed in a Protestant exodus, being the real founding date of the US, and not 1776. Protestantism got created by the Knights Templars and led to the founding of their biggest New World Order, horizontal rule state of all times, and all according to plan. You can watch this video here about it. Therefore, it may sound as a paradox that the Swiss mercs under Templar command were fighting for the Catholic Church and against the Protestants. This was only to push the Protestants to colonize the new huge horizontal rule republic called America and its human product called the Americans. So it says a paradox. The definition of a paradox is a statement or proposition that seems self-contradictory or absurd, but in reality expresses a possible truth. An example by Shakespeare, I must be cruel to be kind, or by George Orwell, all animals are equal, but some are more equal than others. And this paradox about the Swiss mercs here, the Swiss mercenaries fighting for the Knights Templars against the Protestants, while Protestantism itself was founded by the Knights Templars. So, guess where the Swiss octagon mercs went to when in 1648 they massively disappeared from the European battlefields? Well, the answer to that question you can find here on the channel Homeland Security in the video Swiss Sleeper Agents in USA and the war makers from Switzerland on all key positions. Why do you think it says here 1620 to 2020 on the commemorative and not 1776 to 2020, huh? With the British Queen on a US $10 coin? Well, because the English nobility still owns your butt. So the masters started to import first different peoples from all over Europe to make this new product called the Americans, who are therefore not a people, but a mix of peoples who have lost their original national identities into a brand new serving product for our masters. They brought in the different ingredients from Ireland, Germany, Italy, Norway, Greece, and from all over Europe, and put them into a big blender to make a big American milkshake, falsely calling the new milkshake a people, which they are not, as Americans are not a people, but a Freemason product by Pharaoh, who have been uprooted out of their original peoples and then dropped into the big mixer, as in a big reset, and put a new but artificial label on their new livestock, Americans. The masters brought them over on big ships from all over Europe, gave them a penetrating nasal sound which you find nowhere else in the entire world, and especially developed for their new and biggest New World Order product of all times. It wouldn't surprise me if ancient Pharaonic was pronounced with the same nasal sounds of their American product. The folks who were already living there in the new octagon were considered as useless eaters and needed to be decimated to make place for the new product, for which the Swiss mass murderers, Swiss Colonel Bouquet and Swiss General Custer took over the task like a pair of genuine Freemason enforcers in order to get things done every time it needs a huge war to set in motion. The big blender and the gender bender, which is another item of the master's agenda. The Russian people will never accept. And that's funny. It even said the word, it says the word which I'm not allowed to pronounce in reverse. H-O-M-O, one of those here. So World War II was that huge war to put the blender in motion, with immediately in 1946 the mass immigration in Europe set in motion, where big companies literally went searching for guest workers from Turkey, Italy, African and Arab countries, with the result that countries like England, France, Germany and the rest are no countries with a genuine people anymore. Just as it was done in probably the biggest human experiment ever through the creation of the United States of the Big Blender. This is the main reason for what's happening now with the Ukraine crisis, which was already decided by our masters in Switzerland when US President Biden retracted the US troops out of Afghanistan. And when I saw that happening, I thought, uh-oh, where do the masters going to need all those troops? Which has become evident now, since the NATO troops are all messed up at the Russian border. And President Putin is of course part of the scam, betraying the Russian people, as the Russian and Ukrainian people are going to be the big losers in the end through mass starvation. And after that, to be put in motion, the big blender, needing to accept pink list killers and Nubians all over Russia and the Ukraine. As Mr. Putin is of course part of Pharaoh's mafia, just as any other president in the entire world is. This here in the top here is St. Petersburg here, and all this is Teutonic Knights. So Putin is from St. Petersburg, which is almost Teutonic Knights territory of this Black Order being all over the Baltic. And Putin is their man to destroy Russia and the Ukraine in order to make another big blender, gender bender out of the recalcitrant Slavic peoples. Apparently, Putin is a billionaire with lots of companies and having stashed a lot of money in Switzerland. Panama Papers put in funds in Zurich. So please, dear Russian people, wake up, because this guy is not your friend, in spite of the way he's showing himself as a masculine man, Russian, the way the Russians like to see their president. Trump, he did exactly the same thing. Just don't fall into the scam, please, and wake up. Yeah, I'll read it out loud for you. Putin's friend. One of the people exposed in the fallout about the Panama Papers is Sergei Roldugin, a close friend of Russian President Vladimir Putin, as reported by the Swiss newspaper Tages-Anzeiger. Roldugin stashed millions at the Zurich branch, that's in Switzerland, of Russian financial institution Gazprom Bank, money that he is unlikely to have earned as a professional cellist and conductor. The records show Roldugin is a behind-the-scenes player in a clandestine network operated by Putin Associates that has shuffled at least $2 billion through banks and offshore companies. According to the ICIJ, I don't know what that is, German daily Süddeutsche Zeitung and other media partners, Roldugin is listed as the owner of offshore companies that have obtained payments from other companies worth tens of millions of dollars. A company linked to the cellist also grabbed secret influence over Russia's largest truck maker, and others snagged a big slice of Russia's TV advertising industry. It's possible Roldugin, who has publicly claimed not to be a businessman, is not the true beneficiary of these riches. Instead, the evidence in the files suggests Roldugin is acting as a frontman for a network of Putin loyalists, and perhaps for Putin himself. Wake up, dear Russians, wake up, they're all the same criminals all over the world. There also are rumors and actual witness accounts that his children are in Swiss boarding schools, and that his children of Mr. Putin are Swiss and born in Swaziland. So here you can see Putin, of course. I wonder what it says here. Oh, it looks like a square and compass. Well, wouldn't surprise me. So this is his wife. She was an Olympic athlete, much younger than grandfather here. And these are his two Swiss children. And our witness accounts and newspapers have been, even the newspapers have been writing about this. So he's got his money in Swaziland, he's got his children there, and when he's finished with Russia, that's probably where he goes to, eh? So this is his wife of Mr. Putin. It says Alina Kabaeva, and it says she is reportedly the longtime partner of a Russian President Vladimir Putin. Yeah. Quite a young woman. There she is, a athletic star, gymnastics. So why is this red here, right? Just think about it. And it says in the personal life as well. Yeah, personal life. In April 2008, the Moskovsky correspondent reported that Kabaeva was engaged to Russian President Vladimir Putin. The story was denied and the newspaper was shut down. Yeah, well, that's how they do it in a dictatorship, eh? Just shut down the newspaper. Okay, shut up, In the following years, the status of Kabaeva and Putin's relationship became a topic of speculation, including allegations that that they have multiple children together. In July 2013, Cabeva reported that she did not have any children. Yeah, sure. All a bunch of liars. Look here. I already made a video about this, but it disappeared. Like, in March 2015, she was reported to have given birth to a daughter at the VIP hospital, very important persons hospital, of Saint Anne in Ticino, Switzerland. There we go, as always, you know. And the woman apparently she's a Muslim, you know. And Putin, he's pretending like he's Orthodox Christian, and even, you know, sending some kids into prison because they made some music in an Orthodox church. What was it? Pussy Riot? You remember that? Eh? He's just pretending, people. And dear Russians, wake up, you know, don't believe his jokes, you know, don't make a picture of this bloke by his jokes. Make a picture of him by the money he's having in Switzerland and all the kiddies he's having there in a rich Swiss boarding schools. Forget about the jokes and forget about his smiling. Forget about him being naked on a horseback. Forget about that. You know, that's all cinema, you know. Just look at the facts and wake up. And why always Switzerland? Hey, it's always Switzerland, our leaders, because it's their base. And the Teutonic Knights, where he's definitely from, and this is another proof, you know, that he's related to Switzerland, you know, because he's from St. Petersburg, next to the Teutonic Knights area. You know, so I knew enough, you know, and this further proves it. And why always Switzerland, huh? Well, because it's their base. Remember the video I did about the Teutonic Knights and how I got aggressed by a Teutonic Knights priest in Switzerland? Because that's where they came from. The Knights Templars went to Switzerland in 1291. They disappeared and they went over in the Teutonic Knights at the same time, and they did another 200 years of crusades in the Baltic states, in almost St. Petersburg. So when it got a bit calmer, you know, they went over to St. Petersburg to infiltrate Russia and to destroy Russia, which is coming now. They're going to destroy Russia, and the people are going to end in famine. They're going to die of hunger, and then they will be ready to accept the whole big blender gender bender. So here it is on my other channel, Homeland Security, where I did last week about 22 uploads of long videos. They're all 2 hours, as you can see here, of some of my older videos that got taken down from my old channel. So these are videos I made actually like 10 years ago, you know. And so here it is. There's that video about the Teutonic Knights. Here you see the Teutonic priest who aggressed me in a church while I was peacefully filming something. And they hooded up on me in my back. I didn't even see them coming. I was filming, and all of a sudden all these guys from the Teutonic church, they were all in there. When I came in there, it was empty and I was filming, you know. And also because of this, the Swiss Nazi authorities, you know, come out of the Teutonic Knights and the Templars. They wanted to put me in prison for this. Also, for everything, you know, they just lie all sort of stuff together. You see how aggressive he is, you know. I was doing nothing. I was just peacefully filming. So this is about the Teutonic Knights. It's a long film. It's 2 hours. They're all 2 hours. And so, well, check it out. On my channel, here it is. Homeland Security. Homeland from Homie Hross, Security. It's all sick, you know. And you find it like here in the channel section. And this is what a real Russian said about Switzerland. The same Switzerland where Mr. Putin He's having his base, his financial base, his family base, his political base, everything. Here, this is Russian Major General Konstantin Petrov. And so here's the title on my channel, Gatsefrats. And this real Russian, he said, since the global mafia live in Switzerland. He didn't live much longer after he said this. Putin killed 300,000 Chechen civilians, of which 40% children, during the two Chechen wars of 1994 and 1999. And he would most certainly do the same with the Ukrainians if he'd get the chance to do so. It says, I'll read for you, in June 2005, Dugvaka Abdurakhmanov, a deputy prime minister in the Kremlin-controlled Chechen administration, said about 300,000 people have been killed during the two wars in Chechnya over the past decade. He also said that more than 200,000 people have gone missing. You can read more in here in Wikipedia. And this one here. Here it says that 40% of them were children. I can't show you because they all ask cookies. So, and I don't want any cookies. So I have to show it to you like this. President Vladimir Putin has been lying to the whole world, saying, no, I'm just having some military exercises. Don't you worry. Of course, I won't invade the Ukraine. The whole world and humanity as a whole have heard the bold lies of this notorious Russian liar without any honor, who even lied to the Russian people and even to his Russian soldiers, who were told the same lies, that it was just an exercise, until they found themselves in the middle of the Ukraine, where they got threatened by their superiors to obey orders and continue the invasion, or to get executed in front of a military firing squad. Putin, the trickster, even tricked his own soldiers into this war in the Ukraine. There's a lot of YouTube videos. Russian POWs say they were tricked, threatened during invasion. There are many more. And it might be a lie, these videos, but I don't think so. Because this is what politicians do. They lie. They all lie. It doesn't matter if it's Putin or Biden or Trump or Macron. So I'd rather believe these soldiers and, what they say than, these politicians. And yeah, so there's a reasonable chance that it is, these videos are true. Putin is a very bad publicity for the Russian people, who now are all considered to be a people of bold liars, because of this Swiss sleeper agent of the Teutonic Octagon called Vladi the Liar. I hope you can all see the octagon here in the neck in the colors red and white. Octagon. And here it's going 4 directions, just like here. This is Switzerland. North for the Swiss Germans, so they can wreck Germany. For the French-speaking Swiss, going to the west. so they can destroy France, for the Italian speaking Swiss going south to Italy, and here the Rheto-Romanic going to the east. A country of 4 languages with an octagon. Look at the symbols, people. It's not for nothing that they put an octagon here with 4 directions. Vladi the Liar, with his not very funny put-in jokes made by his public relations officers to gain our trust. With his naked butt on a lame horse, just as the rest of those Swiss sleeper agents. I'll show you one more time what Vladi the Liar did in Chechnya. This is a witness account by Vakid, an inhabitant of Chechnya. During my childhood, my father and grandfather would say that we couldn't defeat Russia with force, because it had always fought dirty. We need a little patience and measured steps. Russia is already cracking at the seams, and there's no doubt that it will fall apart. We need to be prepared for this in order to not to suffer the consequences. We must learn patience from our ancestors. We must wait, Vakin told. Chechens may swear allegiance to Russia 100 times, but they're doing it under compulsion. Kadyrov, the president, right now, he's right when he says that Putin saved the Chechens from annihilation. He stopped an inch before wiping them out. This is why the spark of hatred towards those who brought 2 cruel wars to their homeland, killing about 300,000 people, civilians, of which 40% were children during the Chechen wars, has never gone out in the depths of the people's souls. If the current generation of Chechens doesn't remind Russia of this, their children surely will. If your Ruskies had a bit more stamina, you could make a song entitled "Let's Spank Vladi's Naked Butt." Putin, you're done. Once a liar, always a liar. Are all Russians liars? I don't know. But at least, it seems, no Russian seems to be bothered by their president's notorious lies, as long as the president attacks the terrible West, about whom the Russians mistakenly believe that the decadent Westerners are no real men who are able to fight. Well, to underestimate the enemy has led to the downfall of many an empire. So this is here from the, it's from February 26, 2022. Now it's March 2nd, and Russia already lost a lot more now. So February 26th, they lost 13 planes. They're expensive things, you know. 8 helicopters, 15 cannons, 1 Buk, which is a missile launcher probably, and 536 armored vehicles. And actually, it's the portable missile launchers making the difference. So the list goes on, you know. This was 8 helicopters. You've seen that just before. They lost 102 tanks, all these, you know, and 3,500 personnel and 200 prisoners. Don't underestimate your enemy. Never do that. Hey, Ruski, your hero Putin taught you the myth of the superiority of the Russian warrior, and you were so eager to believe these cheap tricks and notorious lies, because you felt so flattered by it, integrating it into your daily lives, probably due to a chronic national minority complex, needing to feel superior to the rest of the world, and thus execute it through primary violence. The Nazis did the same with the Germans, making them believe they're superior and invincible warriors, just as Putin did with the Russians. Somehow the naked chest looks familiar, doesn't it now? Oh, there it is. I knew I saw it somewhere. Teutonic Knights Octagon. The French king didn't lie about the Knights Templars and their Teutonic Knights being pinkless killers, showing naked body parts, combined with pseudo-warrior fantasies. And some more pseudo-warrior fantasies of the Octagon Teutonic Knights boys. It says, shirtless Vladimir Putin is back on his official 2022 calendar. The Teutonic Knights and their naked chests. The Teutonic Knights and their naked chests. Same story, same technique, the same ones behind the screens, pulling the strings. Same story, same technique, the same ones behind the screens, pulling the strings. The Teutonic Beach Boys. The Teutonic Beach Boys. Once a liar, always a liar. So now we have here Vladdy the liar talk about a certain denazification of the Ukraine. We know that Vladdy is most likely lying again in order to divide and rule between the Russians and the Ukrainians based upon the events of World War II, when the Ruskies executed the Holodomor genocide on the Ukrainians, starving 10 million, killed by the Ruskies. Now, I'll read it for you. Ukraine is the most fertile land in the world, the bread basket of Europe. But when the Ukrainians tried to assert independence from the USSR, the Bolsheviks, led by Stalin, exterminated them through hunger. In 1932-33, an artificial famine was brutally enforced, and 10 million innocents and their animals starved to death. Even as word got out, America and the world did nothing to stop it. This unspeakable political crime against humanity is the genocide known as Holodomor. So, when the Nazis came in the Ukraine in 1941, the Ukrainians saw them as liberators and saviors, saving them from the Russian genociders, until the Nazis started to act similarly to the Russians and massacred another 5 million non-jaywalker Ukrainians. So this is on Wikipedia, Reichskommissariat Ukraine. Here, the Nazi occupation of Ukraine ended the lives of millions of civilians in the Holocaust and other Nazi mass killings. It is estimated 900,000 to 1.6 million jaywalkers and 3 to 4 million non-Jewish Ukrainians were killed during the occupations. Other sources estimate that 5.2 million Ukrainian civilians of all ethnic groups perished due to crimes against humanity, war-related disease and famine amounting to more than 12% of Ukraine's population at the time. So here's the Ukraine, and some pictures here. Here it says Mr. Hitler, it says Hitler, here it says Hitler, Hitler the Liberator. These people didn't have a choice, you know, they got squeezed into world powers who tried to kill them. This looks like Bormann. The guy was always there when there was some money to get collected. Probably ended his life in Switzerland. And where all the money goes to, as usual. So, here it says, the Nazi propaganda poster in Ukrainian that says Hitler the Liberator. Well, there you go. Of course they saw him as a liberator, you know. After the Ruskies, they murdered 10 million of their people and their children and everything. The people even ate their own children. Can you imagine? They knew they were going to die anyway, so, you know, make it quick for the children, and, you know, why not eat them? And this is what the Ruskies did. Eh? So I'd say, you know, the Ruskies should just shut up. You know, these people are no Nazis. It's ridiculous to say such a thing. So it's ridiculous, Putin saying that Ukrainians are Nazis. It's just Pharaoh not liking the Ukrainians and decimating them over and over again. In a situation comparable to that of the Kurds, some peoples Pharaoh just doesn't like. And as Putin follows the directives of the Teutonic Knights Order, next to the naked chest Nazi show, just like Hitler using 2 Muslim SS divisions to attack the white-raised Europeans in a genuine jihad, butchering 400,000 Slavs in the Balkans during World War II by the Nazi SS Muslim divisions Handschar and the Muslim SS division Skanderbeg, dressed in their black Teutonic uniforms, as you can see here. Therefore, the Teutonic Putin does everything parallel to the Teutonic Nazi directives of the Swiss Octagon, like using the Islamic Kadirovtsi, also dressed in black, like the SS, in order to butcher white-raised Slavic peoples, just like Mr. Hitler did. Why? Well, because the Knights Templars and the Teutonic Knights also have an Arabic Muslim branch, which I explain in this video here on my channel Homeland Security, and here's the title. Teutonic Vladi here is the biggest enemy of the Slavic peoples since Hitler. And look at the sword here. The sword, this is the KGB crest. Look at the sword. It's exactly the same sword as the Kadirovtsi Muslims fighting for Mr. Hitler here have. So that means they were made by the KGB. You know, it's all Teutonic. It's all Templars behind it all. I'll show you the symbol. So here's their name. They're called the Kadirovtsi, the Black Muslims. paid by Putin to murder the white Slavic Ukrainians and their children, just as the Nazis did. It's always the same technique, it's the same people behind it, they don't have much fantasy, and if you don't know history, you will never understand what's happening. So this is what it's about. Well, you can find it up, you can find it yourself, eh? Wikipedia. So I'll show you the logo. Look, this is one of the logos of the Kadyrov-Rovtsi, same sword as in the KGB sword. So just as the CIA is always doing, the KGB is doing the same, and they're brothers with the CIA. It's all one and the same bunch, octagon out of the Knights Templars and the Teutonic Knights. So they created this, you know, just like the Islamic State, you know, were created by the CIA. And so as you see the mountains here, as Chechnya is a mountainous region, this is probably the badge of the Kadyrovtsi mountain division. And I guess this is the badge of the Kadyrovtsi motorized division. The same KGB sword. I don't know what it says here, but it's also the Roman Gladio. So here we're back at the secret organization Gladio, which in fact the NATO and the CIA, they're all behind it. It was all octagon against the peoples. So it is in fact a Gladio, where it all leads back to. You know, it all leads back to history to a certain point. And the Romans were also pharaonically led, as I explain in my videos. It's part of the octagon. So that's why there is a Gladio. It's all the same bunch. They don't have so much fantasy, really. It's always the same techniques. And so you must dig into history, people. They're really arrogant, you know. Look at it. It's so arrogant. Always the same stuff, same techniques, same pictures, the same items, the same symbols. You know, I always say arrogance is the mother of ignorance. So, and here's a comparison with the badge of the SS Handschar and Skanderbeg, the Muslim SS divisions, you know, also a knife or a sword, because these guys, they just like knives, you know. That's the perfect way for a Muslim, you know, to kill your adversary, which we can also see in the outskirts of big European towns. All these guys, Muslim immigrants, are always walking around with a knife, which they pull out, and a lot of killings as well and threatenings. And it's a part of the culture, and that's why you can see it, the parallel of the culture into the in the badges of these military units set up by the enemy within, who are encrusted in our own society. And they use other peoples and other religions, you know, to crush us. And the symbols are really parallel to it. It's really identical. And here again, the one of the badges, they had several badges of the Nazi SS divisions. This is the typical Handschar or Handjar, the Islamic round sword, which they still use today in Saudi Arabia, you know, to chop somebody's head off for some reason or another, if he's not pious enough. And together with the swastika. And the swastika, as I've shown you, it also comes out of the Middle East. It comes out of a Templar cross, and before that, out of a pyramid. See my video, a swastika out of a pyramid on my channel, Gatsefrats. And it's just as the Kadyrovsky, it's a lot of black. It's always black. And why? This is because of the Hashashin, you know, the Muslim, they were not Sunni, they were Shia assassins, an assassin cult. We were very much friends with the Knights Templars as well. That's why we find this all in black. We find this back, you know, just as the Japanese dudes in black, or the Japanese assassins, the ninjas. And the ninjas also come out of the Japanese aristocracy. It's the same pharaoh, it's the same stuff. It's all over the world. And we should all unite, you know, all peoples and all religions, we must unite because they want to divide us. And again, personally, I have no problems with Muslims or immigrants. I'm an immigrant myself, though I'm white. And I met a lot of nice Muslims who took me hitchhiking and who gave me food. And so it's not because of that I'm telling you this. Not at all. I'm not into dividing peoples and races. I have just a problem with the masters who do these sort of things to us, which is extremely evil. Another one of Putin's parallels with the Nazis is that Hitler's pretext of starting World War II was to assist some German minorities in the East, like the Sudeten Germans and the Silesia Germans, who were in fact German guest workers and immigrants in Czechoslovakia and Poland, and literally foreign immigrants and foreign invaders. Just like today's situation in the Ukrainian provinces Luhansk and Donetsk of the Donbas region, into which the Pharaonic Tsars imported loads of Russians beginning 1720 in order to Russify the Ukrainian identity, which of course Stalin repeated with more Ruski imports through a massive amount of Russian immigrants in a situation in which the guests started to take over their host like a virus. A situation quite comparable to European towns, where the next immigrant guest worker generations completely have taken over control over entire parts of European towns, claiming it to be their territory. And again, I have nothing against immigrants. I get along quite well with Muslims and others. And I just don't like the game of our masters, you know, to set peoples up and to set religions and races up against each other in order to create war. And, you know, this picture here of Mr. Putin, you know, there have been pictures of Mr. Hitler with the Sudetenland Germans and the Silesia Germans exactly the same way. His finger was pointing at Sudetenland and Silesia. Silesia in Poland and Sudetenland in the Czechoslovakia. They're just repeating history. It's the same thing. They're just looking for a pretext. So this is Luhansk, Donetsk, Donbas. And these people here, they don't belong to the Ukraine. They're immigrants. And they should behave like guests and not try to take over their hosts, their Ukrainian hosts. This is wrong. And so I just want to have you look at the octagon here at his black Teutonic clothes. This is octagon of the Teutonic Knights and the Knights Templars, and he knows it. So here you can read about the Russification of the Ukraine. Here you can see it started with the Tsars, Peter, Catherine, Alexander, Nicholas, and it was taken over by Stalin, Khrushchev. They all did it. So it's again, you know, the Tsars, it already says the word Tsar. They are the pharaohs setting it all up. And our masters created a fifth column inside of the Ukraine, which they can mobilize whenever they want in order to create havoc, which happens to be the slogan of the Knights of the Freemasons, Ordo ab Chaos. So it's our masters, you know. And apparently all these our masters have something against the Ukrainian people. Just as they have against some other peoples, like the Kurds and also the Afghans. There's some peoples who are not very obedient, who obey their hearts maybe, or obey their inner being instead of the masters. The Swiss are extremely obedient, so they get everything. They never have a war. But peoples who are not obedient, who don't want to obey the masters, who rather obey their inner being and their heart, Pharaoh doesn't like them. So Pharaoh tries to mix it all up. And so this was part of the big blender, you know, the Russification of the Ukraine. You know, it's always the same. It's the same agenda. And if you don't understand it, and you can't put it in a historical perspective, you will never understand anything. Then some people say, oh, the Russians are bad. The other ones say the Ukrainians are bad. The Americans are bad. And this is exactly what our masters want. I'm quite sure there's nothing wrong with the people in Luhansk or in Donetsk. Neither is there anything wrong with the Ukrainian people or most of the Ruskies. We're being set up people, and it must end. So this is also Wikipedia, Russians in the Ukraine. Because of a situation created by our masters, just like in Western Europe in the 50s, 60s and 70s, our masters went looking for guest workers. They lied to us. They say, well, they're just going to stay for a while. Although they knew from the beginning, they knew from the beginning they were meant to stay, you know. So our masters lie. That's all they're going to do, lie, lie, lie. So we must team up together. Even the people in Luhansk and Donetsk and the Ukrainians, the only way, you know, is to team up together and get rid of our politicians, you know. All these pharaohs, they're all Freemasons. And so there has been an agenda, you know, to mix up the Ukraine, just as what we see happening all over. Ein Volk, ein Führer, ein Reich, you know, one people, one leader, they're one empire. They want to make one mixed people, you know. It's so much easier to rule. And yeah, of course, you know, it might end up in civil war and in war, which is steered by our masters all the time. So Putin's setup of World War III is perfectly identical to the setup of World War II. No wonder, because it's all Swiss Templar Teutonic Knights strategy behind the scenes. Therefore, Swissy has a very large Swiss sleeper agent fifth column community in the Ukraine, always going for all key positions in all countries in the world, like the 1 million Swiss Americans in the US on all key positions. Hey, Swissy. Yeah, it's on Wikipedia, the Swiss emigration to Russia. There was a significant emigration of Swiss people to the Russian Empire from the late 17th to the late 19th century. It's been estimated like 60,000 Swiss lived in Russia between roughly 1700 and 1970. That's probably over 1 million now, Swiss farmers, and they went to Bessarabia. Yeah, so you can see where Bessarabia is. It's part of the Ukraine and Moldavia. And they are there. They're always there. And that has to do with the Knights Templars. When the Knights Templars who founded Switzerland, so watch my video, The Swiss Beast, Home of the Devil, on the same channel. It's 18 hours. All the proofs are in it. So here, look. History of German settlement in Central and Eastern Europe. Talking about Sudetenland, Silesia. There's a Swiss diaspora. Oh, look at that, everywhere. And here, Swiss Americans. This is a very interesting website. I already shown it to you. Look, total population in America, it's almost 1 million. They are, and it is the history of it. They rule the US. Swiss Americans by numbers in towns like New York and in Oregon, there are 33,000. So especially the more like towns with a where they have the Ku Klux Klan and all that, they're mostly like Swiss. Communities settled by Swiss immigrants. Swiss Historical Society, the notable people. Many American presidents, they were Swiss. So you also have Swiss Argentines, Brazilians, Canadians, Chileans, etc. So it's all because of the Knights Templars who founded Switzerland in 1291. So let's go back to where we were. So in Bessarabia in Ukraine, and of course they also went to other parts of the Ukraine, and Swiss emigration to Russia, mostly the Ukraine. Well, here Bessarabia, which is part of the Ukraine. It says Ukrainian Bujak region. I'll show you the video, the Swiss Beast, in a moment, for the ones who are new to this channel. So for the ones who are new to this channel, that's why I have to repeat this. It's the same channel, Giureh. Here's the title, The Swiss Beast, Home of the Devil, Part 1. I'm explaining the Nazi Templars. And so you have to search it in the channel, give the whole name. If you put it in the search machine of YouTube, it won't pop up because YouTube doesn't want you to see this video. Here's part 2, the occult origins. And there are 5 parts. It's altogether 18 hours. Here's part 3, the final assault. And part 5, it's on my other channel, Homeland Security. Well, it doesn't even show up. Oh, here it is. Here's part 4, breaking individuals and nations. Ukrainians breaking individuals and nations. Go and watch this. And so the people new to this channel maybe are Ukrainian brothers and sisters. So you must absolutely see this 18-hour series, because it explains everything. And of course the Ukraine, the Knights Templars had castles and commanderies in the Ukraine. They were everywhere. And if you don't understand it, I mean, there's so much you can do. You only end up in a civil war if you don't understand who the real enemy is. I fought twice in my life against the Russian army. Once in Angola in 1981, as you can see here, and the second time in Afghanistan in 1985. So this video you can see here on YouTube. And I can tell you that Russian soldiers are a lousy, undisciplined bunch who are good in killing children and raping women, but no good soldiers, and always with old weapons material. Just look at the Russian videos on the internet, on YouTube, about Russian drivers. Russians just can't drive, and they see children on the Russian roads as collateral damage. Here you see a Russian 3-year-old flying. Here you see a part of the pram. And the Russians, they behave similarly in a war. They don't care about children. They are child killers. Even on their own roads, they are child killers. This is what a Russian soldier looks like. They behave similarly and even worse in a war as on their own streets. Well, the Russian army is exactly like that. A bunch of mad drivers who don't care about others and leave a drastic amount of collateral damage behind. There are loads of videos here on the internet, like this one here. They just slam a tank through an airport, you know, and they're even proud of it. You know, it's like a race, you know, who can slam down the most children, you know, with his car. No, I'm serious, I'm not joking. Here, videos show drunk Russian soldiers ram their tank into airport wall, damage surveillance systems. This is how they are. It's very undisciplined soldiers, very bad soldiers, you know. And when it goes wrong, they go all crying. Well, if you see those YouTube videos, you know, you see cars flying around and children, you know, being slammed all over, killed and massacred. You know, the Russian roads, you know, it looks like a war zone. You know. So let's show them what a real war is, shan't we now? The Russian tanks I saw in the Ukraine war on the internet are first generation, with a cannon hopping up and down with every bump in the road, whereas any NATO tank has a stabilizing system, keeping the cannon in target no matter how many bumps in the road. Here you see, you know, the tank, you know, going down, but it has a gun stabilizer, you know, it stays straight here, shooting. These are straight shooters, whereas the Russian tanks I saw in the internet, like on YouTube or by the media, you know, when every Russian tank, I saw the cannon like hopping up and down during their so-called Russian army exercises before the war. So they've got really very bad, old-fashioned scrap material. The Germans already in the 1980s had a tank with such a high-quality gun stabilizer on the cannon that a glass of German beer didn't fall off on extremely rough terrain. In Afghanistan, the Russians murdered 2 million Afghan civilians from 1979 till 1989, and leaving another 3 million wounded and 5 million Afghans flee their country. So this is on Wikipedia. Here you can see these dudes here. In those days it was the Mujahideen. So here you can see it. Yeah. Civilians during that war. 2 million killed, 5 million refugees, 2 million refugees in Afghanistan, 5 million refugees outside of Afghanistan, around 3 million Afghans wounded. That's what the Ruskies did. The Ruskies even dropped toys for Afghan children with bombs in it in order to maim them. And this is one of the results of the Afghan war. Russian product. The Ruskies are a bunch of child killers. They do it on their roads, on their national roads with their cars. They do it in the wars. And it seems they're kind of proud of it. In spite of his jokes and smooth talk, Putin has been trained to kill, as he was a lieutenant colonel in the KGB, Комитет Государственной Безопасности. I was in there once, in the 80s, inside the KGB headquarters at the Dzerzhinsky Square. I remember it was very dark in there, with only an office lamp at the tables in the various rooms. A creepy place. Putin is of course a good pal with Biden, Trump, Macron and the rest of his pharaonic cousins ruling over humanity. And Putin will betray the Russian people because Putin wants the same blender and gender bender agenda as the rest of his international Freemason pals. And it's here where we get to the relation of the Ukraine war with the Amanda Knox case in Perugia, Italy. Because the Italian Freemasons, whom you can see here in Perugia, where it all happened, want the same chocolate milkshake blender for the Italian people as anywhere else in the world. And when it would have been known too much that in fact the Nubian Rudi Gede from Ivory Coast had raped and murdered Meredith Kercher, then it would have given random lynch parties on immigrants all over Italy, drastically slowing down the master's blender agenda. So 10 years after the Amanda Knox case in Perugia, this happened, what the Freemasons already wanted to stop. And so I read it for you. This guy, Luca Traini, you can see the runic sign on his head. He was into right-wing politics. So Luca Traini is a far-right supporter. Supporter reportedly tells the trigger for his shooting spree was the grisly murder of an Italian woman by a Nigerian asylum seeker. So the same story basically as in the Amanda Knox Freemason scandal. And I mean, this is Italy. You know, they're hot-headed and they have enough of all the many people. Most Italians are, well, I mean, they invented fascism. It's from Italy, you know, and Mussolini and everything. So I traveled over Italy, and I must say it's quite a fascist mentality, you know. So, well, that's not my problem, you know. If you don't like that, you can avoid it. But anyway, this gives a certain situation which the Freemasons and their agenda, which is more important than the life of Amanda Knox, of course, they had to avoid that. So I'll read it out for you, what after this Italian young woman was murdered, just like Meredith Kercher in Perugia, the Freemasons and the masters in power, they knew exactly what would going to happen, because they know the Italians and they know the potential for fascist reactions and etc. They chose Amanda Knox to be the to sacrifice her, as in a yeah. So this guy here, Luca Traini, he said by himself, instinctively I turned around when he heard the news. I went home, I opened the safe and took the pistol and decided to kill them all. And that's what he did. Well, actually, he didn't even kill anybody. So Amanda Knox is just collateral damage in the whole affair, because they know perfectly well what's going to happen in a very similar case, And that's why this is important, to understand the Amanda Knox scandal with that Freemason judge Giuliano Mignini. He says he's not, he says he's Catholic against the Freemasons, but they're all lying, A judge is a Freemason, most of them, And otherwise, if he would have been a good Catholic, he wouldn't have done it, what he did. So Amanda Knox is just a collateral, And so I'll show you some more. So this is what happened, the Macerata shooting in 2018, 10 years after the Amanda Knox case. And here it says, on October 3, 2018, Traini was sentenced to 12 years in prison. And the murderer of Meredith Kercher, he did also exactly 12 years. It's, these are political trials. So here it says, this guy here, it was a drive-by shooting. Okay, I'll read it here. On February 3, 2018, in the city of Macerata, Marche, 28-year-old local Luca Traini, driving a black Alfa Romeo 147 and armed with a 9mm Glock 17, third-generation semi-automatic, seriously wounded in a drive-by shooting 6 African migrants. Traini also targeted the local headquarters of the ruling Italian Democratic Party, who take them all in. After the attack, Traini reportedly had an Italian flag draped on his shoulders and raised his arm in a fascist salute. That's why I'm telling you, Italy, I mean, it's a fact. It's quite fascist, And so this guy, he never killed anybody. And he got the same prison sentence as the killer of Meredith Kercher in the Amanda Knox story. So, these are all political trials. So a guy who'd never killed anybody, and he did it out of a criminal action by someone else. So he was sort of triggered. He got the same prison sentence as a real killer and a rapist and a burglar and a drug dealer, So this guy was not a criminal, but he was politically motivated, and he gets the same sentence as a convicted killer, the Rudy Giureh. probably a German name, so you have to pronounce it Gude. Rudi Gude. Just like Kirche, and it's a German name, it's actually pronounced Kirche. So it's very interesting, because if you want to know what really happened, you must find yourself a similar case, and of a woman getting murdered, like in this case of the Maserati killing, and in the Meredith Kirche Amanda Knox killing. So in both cases you got a woman killed, and then you go on comparing, and so you can conclude certain facts out of that in the same country, there's funny things are happening. The same prison sentence, for the one side a murder and the other side no murder at all. And I mean, the guy, he didn't it was not prepared to kill anybody. It was just in a hot-headed moment. He just did it, and, well, not that I say it's good, of course not, but it's quite scandalous, the things that are going on in Italy, and by comparison you can see, it definitely is about the agenda, and the agenda is far more important for the Freemasons and our masters, to mix it all up. And again, I have no problems with it. I think it's quite interesting, so many cultures. But I don't like the masters and what they're doing, setting people up against each other, people killing each other. There's hatred all over. This I don't like. And they know it exactly. It's not about love and love your neighbor and love everyone, that they mix up all the peoples. It's exactly the opposite what they are aiming for. Hatred, wars, civil war, murders, like these things going on. And yeah, in Italy, I saw black people, and yeah, well, it's not easy for a black person being in Italy. In France, I see them walking around with a big mouth, and and being the kings. Like in Italy, I saw immigrants walk around with their head downwards, because, well, they're scared in Italy. So, and the judges, they know this. Judge Mignini, he perfectly know this, and his Freemason pals, they know this. So Amanda Knox had to be the collateral. It has been decided in the Freemason Lodge. So the judge Mignini, he had to lie a whole fairy tale about satanic rituals around it, for the Italian newspapers and everything. A real evil guy, this Mignini. A real, the real force in all countries, over all nations, and over all peoples. The Freemasons are. And this is very much related to the war in the Ukraine, because you have to know their agenda. I know their agenda. You know it too, if you think about it. And it's about destroying a national identity of a people, because it's much easier to rule a product of a total mixture of all races and peoples. Then there would only be the pharaohs, our masters, and the rest. And this is what they are doing in the Amanda Knox case, and the Second World War, and the Ukraine war. So there you go, people. Know their agenda, and you know why they do things. Of course, there are many more items in their agenda, of which I already have been talking a lot. So here's the other case. I pronounce it in the German way as opposed to the murder of Meredith G.I.U.R.E.H. And you see here, it happened in 2008. The Giureh guy, he got a 16-year sentence, and he got released in 2021. So that makes 13 years. So the killer, he gets the same prison sentence as a guy who actually was more into protecting the women. He was so disgusted by it that he went berserk, and he went on a killing spree. So here you see Perugia. There's the word per in it. Per, it means the house in the Pharaonic language. So the house of Ugia. Of course, the pharaohs through Sicily, the other way. I mean, Rome was ruled by the pharaonic elite, until the Vandals and the Germanic tribes. They put a halt to that when they ransacked Rome in the year 455. Here's again pergola, per, the house of a aristocratic house, so to speak. Let's see if there are more. It looks very beautiful there. There's the killer. He's a convicted killer. I can say he was a rapist, a killer, a burglar, a drug dealer from, it says, from Ivory Coast. It might also be interesting to see who his father is, or if he has any family members in Ivory Coast who are Freemasons or politicians. You know, there might be the double reason. There is a double reason, which I'm going to tell you in a moment. Okay. Therefore, the whole Freemason machine was set in motion at high speed. Using Pharaoh's lying media to spread the most horrifying lies about Amanda Knox and her Italian boyfriend Raffaele Sollecito, just 20-year-old kids, that they were Satanists doing a murder ritual, calling her the Ice Maiden, with no media nor authorities talking about the real rapist murderer from Africa, in order to protect Pharaoh's Freemason agenda. So this is the guy, Rudy Giureh. He committed burglary, so these are the facts for which he was sentenced. He committed burglaries on September 27, 2007, October 13 and 27, 2007, and the burglary and murder of Meredith Kercher on November the 1st, 2007, which is a fact now. It has been proven. His sperm was found inside the girl's inners. The Italian people bought the newspaper lies, and it became a genuine witch hunt against two entirely innocent kids who just happened to be at the wrong place and the wrong time, thus become a mere collateral damage in Pharaoh's game towards total control over humanity and the various agendas to achieve the greater goal. I'll read it here for you. On top, you can't see it, it says the stench of corruption in Canada's courts. Canada, especially British Columbia, has a serious problem with Freemason judges who fix the outcome of cases to benefit fellow Freemasons at the expense of innocent persons. Hey, Amanda Knox, you better read this. So, secondly, judges and prosecutors all over the world are usually Freemasons, and particularly in Perugia, where there are no less than 24 Freemason lodges. And in spite of his claiming of the judge Giuliana Minini, whom you can see here on the left-hand side, to be a serious Catholic, being against the Freemasons. Of course, the Italian prosecutor Giuliano Minini is lying about his Freemason membership, as they always do. Well, it's a secret order, right? Who are also very much integrated into the Catholic Church. They're everywhere on all key positions, these Freemasons. So I read it out for you. Warning: Catholic Church under attack. On March 13, 2013, His Holiness Pope Francis was elected Pope of the Holy Catholic Church. This day marks 187 years since Pope Leo XIII issued the papal bull Quo Graviora, in which condemned Freemasonry. Numerous popes called out the evils of Freemasonry within their papal encyclicals, some going as far as calling them the synagogue of Satan. So they call Freemasonry the synagogue of Satan. The Grand Master of the Grand Orient of Italy, so, you know, Perugia, Amanda Knox, Italy, the Grand Master of the Grand Orient of Italy expresses joy regarding the election of Pope Francis. He, the Grand Master in Italy, Gustavo Raffi, joyfully stated that with the election of Pope Francis, nothing will ever be the same again. Here you can see him, Gustavo Raffi, the Grand Master from 1999 to 2014. So he was the Grand Master when Amanda Knox, she was in Perugia. So that was on Thursday, 21st of March 2013. The Freemasons' letter to Pope Gregory the 16th, Alta Vendita, states that what we must ask for, what we should look for and wait for, as the jaywalkers wait for the Messiah, the Moshiach, is a Pope according to our needs, and it's up to the secret societies to take the first step towards the Church with the aim of conquering both of them. So this is what the Freemasons say. The Catholic Church must be conquered, and also the Moshiach and the Messiah. They want to conquer all of this. And I think this is related to the fact, well, now I'm coming to somewhere else, you know, that there are two Messiahs. You know. The real one, he comes first, the Antichrist from Anteria, he's coming before. Or the Moshiach ben Yosef, as the jaywalkers call him. He's the real one, who gets murdered and then replaced by the one, the Moshiach ben David, or the Messiah, Christ, out of the house of David, of the pharaohs, of those King David, the killer and rapist, you know, all these pharaohs. So the real Messiah who comes before, Anteria, the anti with an E Christ, is going to be replaced by the wrong one, if the whole story has any sense at all. If it does, it's rather gonna be like this, the other way around. So next to the Freemason agenda of Pharaoh, of the big blender, melting pot, there are two more options, or maybe even a combination of both, in connection to the Amanda Knox case. In Ivory Coast, where the killer is from Perugia, the Perugia killer, they speak French. So the name of Ivory Coast is Côte d'Ivoire. Côte, it means coast, Ivoire is ivory. Don't worry about the French, I'll translate it for you. Here it says in French, pour comprendre la campagne de dénigrement de l'Église catholique de Côte d'Ivoire contre la franc-maçonnerie. So here you see some Freemasons in Ivory Coast. They're everywhere. And here is the name of one of their lodges, les Frères Maçons de la Loge Montnébo, numéro 67, Obédience Prince Al. I'll translate that in a minute for you. So here's a Freemason lodge. On this side here, you see the square. Here's the square, the compass, the G. Here they got their pharaonic cloth, you know, like the pharaohs, a little tissue in front of their loins. This one looks like an Afrocentrist. You know. They are the ones who think the pharaohs, well, they were all black, in spite of the fact they all had red hair. So here's a Freemason lodge called Mason Brothers of the Lodge Mount Nebo, number 67, Obedience Prince Hall in Ivory Coast, where the Perugia killer Rudy Gede was from. Now, imagine his father being a high-up Freemason of Ivory Coast. It is 100% possible that the message amongst these international Freemason fraternity, a message from Ivory Coast to Judge Giuliano Mignini in Perugia, would suffice to protect the supposed Freemason son from Ivory Coast and roast someone else instead, thus making it more comprehensible. The corrupt Judge Mignini, whom you can see here, saying out of the blue and totally out of context, with nobody asking him, that as a Catholic who hates Freemasons, as if he had to smother all possible assumptions beforehand of him being a Freemason related to his future actions, knowing that one day questions were going to be asked, like just right now, Mr. Mignini. Yeah, Freemason, corruption, square and compass in the police, happens all the time, people. Here on the same channel, Giureh, I have proven you in these two videos about the Mafia, entitled Mafia mi anima fidelem ius arian sent omerta, born out of the holy land of the pyramids, and Slayer Saints Pray and Slay, that the Mafia is a brother organization with Freemasonry. So, most Italian magistrates are on the payroll of the Mafia in Italy, the most corrupt country in Europe. I'll read it out for you. Mafia join Italy's Freemasons to do deals with judiciary. Ain't that so, Mr. Mignini? And because all immigrants who choose a criminal career in Italy have to work for the Mafia to get the merchandise due to the considerable mafia logistic network and for not to get killed by the mafia. A second mafia sub-network of Nubians have been created. And here you see the Nubian killer Rudi Gede. In Italy, I used to have pizza parties with the Italian colonel Colonnello Pietro Ciocca of the Artiglieria di Montagna, whom you can see here in this video on my channel Hatzefratz. Here's the title: Italian colonel talks Afghanistan and wild pizza party with his carabinieri pals. Here he is in the middle. So the colonel spent 5 years in Afghanistan being responsible for the Farah province in Afghanistan. So the Italian colonel and his carabinieri pals told me that the entire Italy belongs to the mafia, in a way that every region in Italy and every part of town is under control of a certain mafia clan as their working space, divided in parcels of land, if you like, making it absolutely impossible for any criminal immigrant like Rudi Gede to work independently from the mafia, unless having a death wish. It says, this is what he said on Skype, apparently. Amanda had nothing to do with it. So how does he know that Amanda had nothing to do with it? Eh? Because he did it, he was there. And probably some mobsters as well. So it was on Skype on November 18th, 2007. On the website Injustice in Perugia in defense of Raffaele Sollecito and Amanda Knox. You know, the whole case stinks, you know. Italy is entirely corrupted. Yeah, the whole internet is full of it, but I can't show it to you because I don't want their cookies. So in this censored and highly controlled internet. So here's the Guardian saying migrants are more profitable than drugs. How the mafia infiltrated Italy's asylum system. A Nigeria cultural mediator offers condoms, and you know, it's white trade or black trade in this case. Prostitution, drugs, here too. The real migrant crime wave, mafia exploitation of migrants. So, I mean, Rudi Gede was a criminal. It's a fact. And it's another fact that no criminal can work independently, no immigrant criminal. So he was working for the mafia. And that's why he can't talk. Do you have any idea how much money you can earn from immigrants, dubbed Mafia Capitale, the mafia capital? Yeah, how the mafia makes millions out of the plight of migrants. The Sicilian mafia making millions from taking advantage of migrants and refugees, organizing their journeys from North Africa. Oh, they even go and get them in Africa. Prostitution, drugs, everything. And, well, Meredith Kercher happened to be in the way. And the other one, the Knox girl. Old meets new. Oh, only this one I could find. Old meets new as the Italian mafia capitalizes on the European migrant crisis, beginning with the coordination of Mediterranean voyages. So this one didn't have any cookies. Bravo! Yeah, bravo. So I'll show it to you. Here, I'll read it for you. Abstract. Old meets new as the Italian mafia capitalizes on the European migration crisis, beginning with the coordination of Mediterranean voyages, getting them from Africa, and ending with the indefinite exploitation of refugees at mafia-run migrant camps. The mafia has found an opportunity to profit from the crisis at every step of the way, with no end to the constant influx of refugees in sight, and verging on a humanitarian crisis within the camps' walls. Italy faces a serious problem that requires a multifaceted solution. The Dublin regulations, which mandate registration and application for asylum in the first European Union country of entry, are in no small part tied to the situation in Italy. Not only does this system disproportionately burden border states and slow the asylum application process, it also traps refugees in a procedural limbo and allows corrupt individuals, Judge Minini, and organizations to profit from their quandary. In dire need of change in light of the refugee crisis, reforming Dublin has the capacity to loosen the mafia's financial stronghold on the plight of migrants, while also safeguarding the fundamental human rights of refugees and giving them a better chance at the life they seek within Europe's borders. So, this is one of the two other aspects. Like one, the killer was working for the mafia, and so next to and this is all related to the corrupt Freemason system, because the mafia and the Freemasons, they are one thing, which I have proven you. So, and behind this, they have their agenda of the gender bender blender mixing thing, mixing it all together. Even behind the mafia part, and then we have, of course, the Freemason lodges in Ivory Coast. So there are three important aspects of this horrible crime and the scandal behind it. So that is I repeat, the agenda of the Freemasons to mix it all up, the mafia behind the refugees and the crimes, and the Freemason lodges in Ivory Coast, and of course Judge Menini, 100% Freemason, 200% Freemason. So there are three things, and this is how it's connected with the Ukraine crisis, because this is what they're doing. There's always already 1 million Ukrainians out of the country. So that's what they do, Ukrainians out, immigrants in. Ukrainians out, Muslims in. Just in Europe after the Second World War. Why do they have the Kadyrovsky, the black hooded Muslim fighters for Putin, in spite of the fact, that's a real paradox, that Putin murdered, 300,000 civilians in Chechnya. And the only way to understand it all is to know the history and look behind the screens. So Rudy Gede, the immigrant cat burglar and drugs dealer, was 100% working for the Italian mob. No other options possible. Out of the question. It says, the saga of Rudy Gede, the solo cat burglar of Perugia. The complicit media, both Italian and most of it all English, they talked all the time about the ice-cold killer eyes of Foxy Noxy, but they never spoke a word about the eyes of Judge Menini here. And the Nubian killer was doing high-value burglaries for the mafia and their elite Freemasons of whom you can see one of them here. And they most likely tried to get Meredith Giureh into a mafia brothel through the traditional gang rape, to initiate a young girl into prostitution by numbing down all her natural senses. And it's also very possible that they just dumped the body of Meredith Giureh back into her room when they were finished with her in the Freemason Lodge. Ain't that so, Mr. Menini? Well, maybe, but I can't tell you, because in Italy we have the omerta. The police in Italy is as corrupt as Judge Giuliano Menini, whom you can see here. And they know very well which mafia clans are responsible for the land parcel of Perugia, but they all keep the omerta. The omerta by one of the 9 initiators, founders of the Knights Templars, Godefroy de Saint-Omer, Omerta. And the Freemasons come out of the Knights Templars, and so does the Mafia. Omerta, Mr. Menini, va bene. Lasciate ogni speranza, voi che entrate. You all remember when I got in this very dangerous situation when entering an ancient Templar commandery where they had a satanic ritual place, and it said in Italian at the gate, Lasciate ogni speranza voi che entrate. It's all related to the omerta. I mean, why does it say in Italian in France? Right? And this Templar commandery is right around the corner from Brad Pitt's castle in France. You can find the video here on the same channel. Here's the title. Go and watch it. It's quite exciting. So, the best option would be to get Rudy Gede into the US to make him talk and roll down some mafia tentacles. There are existing US laws when a crime has happened to a US person abroad. The perpetrators can be held accountable in front of a US court. So let's have a rendition done. Both of them, the Nubian burglar cat and his Italian Freemason judge. So for the mafia, there is a financial interest to keep drug dealers and burglars like the killer Rudy Gede on the streets and provide a certain judicial protection. So he keeps the omerta in prison. Therefore, Rudy Gede got such a light sentence for his abominable crime. And therefore, the media didn't talk about him. I mean, look at these guys with their sunglasses here. If you don't see any resemblance to the mafia, I don't know, guys. Look at this one here, look at this one here, and here. I mean, he's surrounded by the mafia, and he knows he better keep his mouth shut, otherwise he's dead, inside or outside the prison. I guess you didn't see the falcon on the policeman's head, did you now? It's a falcon with red for the old world's order, where they come from, the Pertasser, the red house of Pharaoh. And it's only a falcon that stays in the air like this. This is not an eagle, as they say. An eagle stays like horizontal, you know. And this is, the falcon stands for Hross. It's all Freemasonry, with a crown here, our masters. So it's like the bird, the pharaohs below in history, and he's holding up the crown here in his wings, the wings of Pharaoh, the wings of Freemasonry. He's holding up the crown. That means the nobility, they come out of Pharaoh, which I'm explaining in my videos. And here you see a little brown part of the Nubian, the same picture as before. I think it's great that Amanda Knox and Raffaele Sollecito keep on talking about this conspiracy and the rape of justice. And I'd like to support them with this video to show them the greater forces behind the screens, because it happened to me too, and probably even worse. And when the media, together with the authorities, start teaming up against you, you know there's a far bigger issue behind, for which they're ready to sacrifice you for. When this happens, you're a dead man or woman, or at least your social life is over. Just as they did to me with the media and Freemason authorities teaming up against me, which I show in this video here. Here you can see me on my channel Gatsevatz, and here's the title. And here in this video here, in which you can see the newspaper articles in which they criminalize me for political reasons, to set up new laws based on my person. And that's why, probably because I show these newspaper articles, it says here the following content has been identified by the YouTube community as inappropriate or offensive to some audience. Okay, yeah. Viewer discretion advised. I understand and wish to proceed. So the title is The Swiss Beast, Home of the Devil, Part 4, Breaking Individuals and Nations. So you can click on it, yeah, like here. And then you can see it. And, here, this is interesting. Here you can see the publisher of this of these media, many newspapers. It's called Tamedia, and it belonged to the very influential Swiss aristocracy, who are married into the White House because W. Bush, George W., he's married to Laura, who's out of the family von Grafenried, and they have a castle in Bern, Switzerland. So the video is here on the same channel, showing the newspaper articles, or some of them, in which they completely dragged me into the dirt, just like they did with Amanda Knox. And I spent 5.5 years in prisons where they tortured me for doing absolutely nothing wrong. Switzerland was their very first New World Order baby, when the first horizontal rule was founded in 1291, where they blended 4 peoples together into one New World Order product. Germans, French, Italians, and Rheto-Romanic all together in the big blender. So really, everything always comes in Swaziland first, and then in the rest of the world. Then, in 1776, their second New World Order baby was mixed in the blender to create the American product and not the American people. Because there never has been an American people, except for these ones, maybe. And no matter how many US flags you wave, and no matter how many stars and banners you put on your houses and on your pickup trucks. There will never be such a thing as an American people. Therefore, the name America is completely pharaonic. A meaning big or pregnant, Me for pyramid, Ri for sun, and Ka for the soul. America, America. The reincarnation of the big pyramid will take place under the sun, where souls will live, which I explain in my very first video from 12 years ago, the Pharaoh show, which you can see here on my channel, Gatsefrat. Then in 1789, the third horizontal New World Order was born, where the whole idea came from in the first place by the French Knights Templars. Therefore, France, being the only country in Central Europe being entitled by their internal laws to kick the US Army out. Only in France there are no American bases, because France is like the New World Order father, where the New World Order idea was born by the Knights Templars. Switzerland, the mother, for the first New World Order birth in 1291, and America, their ugly little New World Order monster baby. Therefore, Swaziland, as the mother, is also called the whore of Babylon, with whom all nations traded through her Swiss banks. And Babylon is in fact the reference to the big blender American milkshake, mixing nations and races into the American products and not really American people. So, my dear American friends, this is why your masters do with you whatever they want, because they made you, they shipped you over, and they created you out of several peoples and put you in the big blender. You are their product and therefore their property, as they made a new race and some new genders too, on which they have a secret copyright patented amongst their clan. And I read this for you. One nation under corporate dictatorship, with liberty and justice for sale. Therefore, dear American friends, your masters can terminate their product, if they please so, by sending their uniformed blue gang, who shoot you asunder without any penalty nor judicial consequences, because they are your creator, who made you in the big blender USA. And here it says, strength through unity. There can't be unity in a product, in a mixed blender product. There can only be unity in a people. In countries where they still have real peoples and nations, the police is not allowed to just shoot down and kill their citizens. Only in big blender product states like the US or Switzerland, the police is allowed to eliminate certain of their products and human properties as an unwritten law. I read it for you. People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people. Also, the jaywalkers are a product of Pharaoh, who were 430 years slaves of the masters. Pharaoh gave them a book about the pharaonic kings like King David and the rest, gave them a new identity, and then sent them into the world with this guy here in the basket. Here, I'll read it for you. The Pharaoh as God. Ancient art tells us that the Egyptians believed the Pharaoh was a god on earth. This gave him absolute power over all affairs in Egypt. The Old Kingdom reached its peak during the 4th dynasty and saw trade throughout much of the Mediterranean, as well as mining. Pharaoh is considered to be God on earth, just like the aristocratic descendants of Pharaoh all over the world were considered gods, like the French Sun King Louis XIV, like the sun god Emperor Hirohito of Japan. And here you see the rising sun here. This is Amun-Ra. And he was considered to be a descendant of the sun god. They're all pharaohs. Here it says here, Emperor Hirohito. He was looked to as God by his people. And he's having the same octagonal medals as the rest of the bunch. Japanese Emperor Hirohito. The Americans wouldn't accept this surrender of his unless Japan admitted that their emperor was not a descendant of the sun god Amun-Ra and stepped down as a leader. So this means the big New World Order product, America, a horizontal rule, the very biggest in the world, wanted Japan to change from the old world order with their sun god, vertical rule, to the horizontal republican rule. That's why Japan had to admit that their emperor was not a descendant of the sun god. As I've explained to you in my video, the Nobility World Wars, that the World Wars in fact was a product of the transmission or the change from the old world order vertical rule to the new world order horizontal rule. That's why so many people had to die because of this. And you can see it here. Here once more, Hirohito, the living sun god. And he looks like 2 drops of water, like Heinrich Himmler, the head of the SS, because they're all one and the same bloodline. Even Himmler, he had ears like this and the eyes and everything, the little glasses. And this looks like to be the cross of St. George here with Saint Michael in the middle. It's all the same. It's all pharaonic sun gods and descendants of sun gods over the whole world. Or the sun god Emperor Bokassa from Central African Republic, and many other sun gods throughout history in the world. He has the sun here on his lap, and this is the Hross, the falcon bird. An eagle doesn't stand up like this in the air, it's only the falcon doing this. Just like the so-called American eagle, which is not an eagle, which is a falcon. And it's all a reference to Hross, the falcon sun god. And you can see this video. Here's the title on the same channel. where last year I visited the castle of Bokassa's French friend, the Pharaoh Giscard d'Estaing. Anyway, the jaywalkers, all-seeing God from their holy books, didn't even know the existence of the European peoples, as all these Middle Eastern holy books, including, of course, the Bible, stop at the Mediterranean and go no further. Here, in this image, you can see how today's jaywalker territory has always been part of Pharaoh's empire. Therefore, King Solomon, in the Bible and in the Jaywalker book, he married the daughter of Pharaoh, which is written in the Bible, black on white. In fact, the holy books are for Orientals only, and talking about Orientals only, and mostly about kings of Pharaonic descent. And you can see it, all this was ancient Egypt, and here's the Jaywalker territory with, of course, Jerusalem and everything, where King Solomon married the daughter of Pharaoh. All Pharaonic stories. And here, you know, where the white race Europeans, and here the Chinese, this all-seeing God couldn't see this, you know, because this is God. Pharaoh is God. There is no other God in these holy books than Pharaoh. I mean, it's written blacks on white in these holy books that Pharaoh is God. And you can see it in the picture here. And the whole story is telling this. And yeah, well, Pharaoh God also had a son called the Son of God, out of the aristocratic pharaonic house of King David, and whom they finally put a crown of thorns on his head. Look, here you can see the French sun god with a crown of thorns around his head, symbolizing the sun and the sun rays of Amun-Ra. The jaywalkers come in all colors and all languages, just as the American product, which is the contrary of the definition of a people, and definitely is the definition of a product. As a genuine people has one single language and one single color. So I read it here for you. The upper class of society in ancient Egypt. The upper class ran the government and religion, just as today, because they're still the same ones. Pharaoh was all powerful, seen as a living god on earth. Priests and priestesses were important and had great influence because life revolved around religion. They knew how to please the gods, Pharaoh, and help the dead into the afterlife. So, my dear Jaywalker friends, Pharaoh's priests are those whom you call the Erev Rav today, and whom you still call Rav or Rabbe today, who cannot even tell you your real history, as I do here, because they don't know. The Erev Rav, Rabbe, or rabbis in English, are the product of Pharaoh's religious indoctrination for the chosen ones amongst his slaves. My dear Jaywalker friends, I've come to set you free. Therefore, the Jaywalkers are very divided between the ultra-religious ones and the more secular ones. Divided between the Jaywalkers out of Germany, the ones from Spain, and down below at the ladder, the ones from the Middle East, which you can see here in this very good video by Al Jazeera. And here's the title. And here you can see the names like. So here's the text in the description of the Al Jazeera film, which was even made, I think, by a Jaywalker itself. I would like to read it out for you, but I cannot pronounce words like this here or words like this because of the censorship. It would immediately censor and delete my video. So that's why I say Jaywalker, which is an honorable expression, as I have nothing at all against the Jaywalkers, against these people, no problem at all. I mean, I'm trying to help them. So this is the reason why I have chosen this word, to avoid having my video deleted because of the general censorship. And of course, as the Jaywalkers are Pharaoh's product, and it's a product of Pharaoh, of her masters. That's why you cannot say anything about it, you know, otherwise then repeat everything what the media says and what Pharaoh says in this global dictatorship of Pharaoh in which we are living. So again, I have no problem with the Jaywalkers, neither is the word a negative word for them. It's rather an honorable expression. And so do read this text here, it's very interesting. And this is not a united people, also far from it. It's being held together by Pharaoh's government in their country, their Jaywalker country, in between brackets, so to speak, because it belongs to Pharaoh, and they're Freemasons. It was a setup by the nobility, what I've already explained in some of my videos. The Jaywalkers are divided between the ones with a Jaywalker mother and those who haven't a Jaywalker mother. No, this is not a people. This is a product. Because within a people there is a union. And this is the lie of Pharaoh's New World Order. Because with all those different colors, there can't be a union, nor the potential to rise up against Pharaoh. And it's therefore Pharaoh wants to destroy all the genuine peoples of this planet, like the Ukrainians today, and throw them into the big blender in order to destroy the Union, making it easier for the masters to rule over their slaves. And for this purpose, Pharaoh uses their Freemason technique of ordo ab chaos, meaning order out of chaos, by bringing the chaos of war. Ukrainians out, immigrants in. Ukrainians out, immigrants in. Again, I have no problem with immigrants, nor do I have a problem with people who have another skin color. I just have a problem with our evil masters and their evil politicians who deliberately want to destroy the sovereign and genuine people of the Ukraine through mass murder on this unified Ukrainian people in order to install Pharaoh's agenda, through which all peoples of this earth are the victims of. I hope you noticed the same double-header birdie of the Teutonic Putin here, and their Templar Teutonic political wing of their Freemasons also having the same double-header birdie. Similarly to destroying the peoples, they want to destroy the union of the family, which the evil ones in the Alps did with my family. And this is exactly what the Son of God Pharaoh said, that he will destroy the union of the family, which he says in the holy book of the Orientals in its adapted form for the Europeans. Here it says in Luke 12:53, Jesus said he would bring divisions. They will be divided, father against son, and son against father, mother against daughter, and daughter against mother, mother-in-law against daughter-in-law, and daughter-in-law against mother-in-law. This is very extremely evil stuff, and it's all by Pharaoh. And it is the same power like behind the Ukraine war and what we see going on now. They want to divide everything, divide and rule. And it's all from Pharaoh. It's all evil, extremely evil. And here's some more of this evil stuff through which the strategy through which these pharaohs rule over the whole world, divide and rule. And if you want to destroy a people, like what's happening in the Ukraine and what happened to the Europeans actually after World War II, you have to start destroying the family, So here it says, Jesus said he would bring divisions. Well, that's what they do, people, divide and rule. So in Matthew 10:34, he says, do not think that I came to bring peace on earth. Oh, wow, nice, eh? Nice bloke. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. Well, that's what we see over 2,000 years of wars without end. The Christians are the biggest butcherers in history. where in 2 world wars, millions of Christians butchered millions of other Christians. I mean, this is a fact. I've seen military graves, war graves, you know, until the horizon, you know, all Christian crosses on a field, eh? It's horrible. And here, Matthew 10:35, for I came to set a man against his father, and a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. Matthew 10:36, and a man's enemies will be the members of his household. Now, what do we see today? This is exactly what we see. 50% of the marriages, they are divorced. The daughters, they hate their fathers, have no respect because, you know, he's not even there anymore. And this is one of the ways how they can get drugs in, prostitution, complete decadence, and sexual deviances and so forth. You know, it's a creepy setup by these pharaohs. And as the jaywalkers were the very first product of Pharaoh, Pharaoh God called them his chosen people, as he created them, being Pharaoh's obedient product, with a holy book to take with them on the road, for not forgetting the rules, in order to unify the product into a identity organ. Some European rulers of Pharaoh's European nobility didn't like it at all, seeing this pharaonic product swarming all over Europe, being afraid that the new system would make them lose control over their European feudal slaves. So now I come to the last reason for World War II and its various genocides, which I wanted to keep for the end of my video series. And I hope you all see the double-headed Old World Order, New World Order birdie as Mr. Putin, the Teutonic Knight, has in Moscow, because this is Prussian, and out of the Teutonic Knights in the same area came the Prussians. Prussian is Teutonic, and the same double-headed Ardoapkau Freemason double-headed birdie, because the Freemasons, they cannot come out of the Knights Templars and the Teutonic Knights. It's all one and the same thing. So here it is Prussia. And because of that, you can see here the coat of arms of Saint Omer, the Omerta, remember? One of the 9 founders of the Knights Templars. And this is why Mr. Putin is having this here, because he is a Teutonic Knight. Due to the jaywalkers' overall censorship and the various draconian punishments for those who dare to think differently, I had to choose different names and words for everything.